Hello, my name is Susana Rodriguez. I am a psychologist at INSER. Welcome everyone to this space called Voices of Hope in Fertility as a Path of Learning. Our purpose in this event is to learn how to take care of ourselves, take advantage of time, and the time of looking for a pregnancy to empower us. And we have a very special talk today. Our guest is Dr. Natalia Pardo Restrepo. She's a doctor from SES University, a specialist in mind-body medicine from the Benson Henry Institute of Harvard University and founder of Body Mind Care. How are you, doctor? I'm very good, thank you. I'm very happy to be here sharing this space. So special. Wonderful. She's going to talk to us about breathing as a tool to reduce anxiety and increase resilience. It's very important when we're looking for a pregnancy. We always highlight the fact that there are things we cannot control, but we can control breathing and it's part of our body. And today we're going to learn how to take advantage of that. Doctor, the floor is yours for you to share your knowledge and experience in this topic. Thank you very much. To everyone that is listening, as Susana was saying, we're going to talk about breathing techniques to reduce stress and to increase resilience. Some years ago, Dr. Rudolf Biltz, a German scientist, did a study on rats in a container of straight walls and put the rats that he knew could swim. And then he analyzed every single rat and take time of how much they could swim. And he started to notice that after 15 or 20 hours, most rats would go to the bottom of the glass without a cause. This caught the attention of this scientist, and then he put the rats again inside this glass, and he put a little stair. And then when they couldn't swim anymore, they could go out. Then he reintroduced those rats after a time. And in that time, the rats could swim for the 80 hours that were expected. This was called the study of hope, because hope is what allows us to reach the maximum capacity of resistance. The second group of rats swam as much as they could for biology, because they knew that at some point that new stair was going to get there and they were going to be able to get out of the situation they were in. Hope gives us the courage we need to overcome challenges. So that's why it's wonderful that INSER thought about people who are going through a process that is very challenging in so many levels, and to talk about hope, not only as a tool that increases resilience, but as something that scientifically helps to put the resources you have in order for you to work with them. People who are resilient generally rate higher in the studies of hope. Resilience is the capacity that every single human being has. It's not something that is specific of some. Everyone has this ability to develop resilience, and that is to transform adversity in growth through sense and purpose that we give to certain situations in our lives. There's a doctor and a specialist in resilience, Lucy Home, that talks about 3 features of the people who have resilience. The first is that they have the ability to focus their attention in the good things that happen every day. At the end of the day, try to go over the things that happen during the day that were unexpected or expected, but that in the end are part of these things that encourage us to trust, to believe that this is a good world, that there are good people, that we are surrounded by good things. Second, change the way of thinking and doing in order to navigate through adversity better. It is possible. We have to question our limitations, those patterns that can prevent us from overcoming difficult situations because we don't have the resources, or we feel like we're not able to do it, or we don't know how to move on. When you are trained in thinking differently and doing things in a different way, you're going to feel more able to transform that experience and to change your perspective. Remember that everything is born in perspective. And finally, always ask yourself, what's the story you're telling? Because the story you're telling yourself regarding a certain situation, it's definitely what's going to make you feel peaceful or worried. It's going to make you feel frustration or hope. So you have to be careful with the stories you tell yourself and ask ourselves if that version of the story is helping us or is harming us. And then change the version of the story and keep the version of the story that empowers you, that reconcile you with life, and above everything, the one that can give you a purpose and a sense. And it's important for you to be more resilient and allow you to go through the dark stretches of life. The way we breathe makes us more resilient, or on the contrary, can make us more stressful. It depends on how you stimulate the autonomic nervous system. The way we breathe is not related to the well-being regarding anatomy or physiology of the lungs. You can have a very healthy respiratory system, healthy lungs, but the way we breathe, from where I'm breathing and how I do it, can alter my autonomic nervous system. The autonomic nervous system, as we are going to see, has 2 branches, the sympathetic and the parasympathetic. Let's talk about this in a simple way. The autonomic nervous system is in charge, as the name points out, to control most of our functions in an unconscious way, in an involuntary way. Breathing, heart rate, blood pressure, temperature, digestion are some of the functions that happen without our will. These functions happen because there is a perfect balance between these 2 systems, the sympathetic and the parasympathetic. The sympathetic system is the one who provides us with energy and capacity to accomplish tasks and the demands of the day. It can raise our blood pressure, heart rate. It can make us feel vital, alert. But when it is overstimulated, we can experience all the symptoms of stress. The contrary happens when there is a parasympathetic stimulation. The parasympathetic nervous system can lead us to relaxation, where we can have lower blood pressure, digestion lowers, we start to think that the way we think and the way we experience emotions is transformed. There is a dance, a balance between these two systems, and it depends on how we stimulate them. Generally, the sympathetic is more active during the day when we are more active, and at night when we are resting, there is more stimulation of the parasympathetic. It's important to know that when you breathe in a certain way, you can activate one branch or the other depending on what you need. Generally, when we are experiencing stress or in situations where we cannot control or threatened by certain circumstances that make us afraid, the best way to handle it is to stimulate the parasympathetic nervous system in order for you to relax and transform your mindset and your biology. In this graphic, we can see what they do and that they're contrary in their functions. There's the sympathetic and the parasympathetic system. The sympathetic system can inhibit salivation and it relaxes our bronchi. And on the other side, the parasympathetic can do the contrary. Why is it important to understand what happens when we stimulate the autonomic nervous system and what's the connection with the way with our cognitive functioning? Well, it turns out that when we're stressed, we experience like a mental blockage, and it can manifest, and we can name it in a different way. I cannot focus. I feel like my emotions are very strong. I can feel that my ability to communicate is modified. I don't know what to say, when to say it. I start to think that my plans and the execution is going to be hard, that I cannot accomplish my tasks. I start to doubt about my abilities. I feel very upset. I feel afraid about the future and the circumstances. I don't trust myself and the people around me. This situation can be understood from the studies of Amy Einstein. If you can see these images, these two are brain images, but a brain that it's activated differently. In this graphic from the left, we can find that this area in green and blue, known as the cortex, the prefrontal cortex, is just the brain behind your forehead, 115 grams, and is the most recent part of our brain. It's our navigation system, is what allows you to do what we just said. It allows you to observe and interpret objectively what's going on at a certain point. It allows you to create relationships with the proper communication, have very proper emotions, to see into the future with hope and empowerment. It allows you to focus on tasks, to have short-term and even long-term memory. It's basically what can give you self-control no matter the external stimulus. When we are relaxed, when the parasympathetic system is activated, the brain command is from the prefrontal cortex, and is where we see our best performance biologically, mentally, and physically. Because when we work like this, adrenaline and noradrenaline levels lower, cortisol levels lower, and my immune system works better. There is a greater capacity to digest food, to absorb food, And it's very important that when you're working with this, your reproductive system and your neuroendocrine axis works better. There is a proper redistribution of blood flow, and everything is like a symphony, like a perfect symphony. On the contrary, when we are victims of chronic stress, when it's a matter of years even, we start to see in the studies that they analyze patients in MRIs, and it can reflect the activity of the prefrontal cortex, and it turns gray. It's no longer so colored, and it reflects a blockage in the prefrontal cortex, and is related to high levels of noradrenaline in a specific area that is called locus coeruleus. These high levels of noradrenaline in the brain, it blocks the prefrontal cortex, and the navigation system is disconnected. And it is said that there is like an amygdaline kidnapping. It's like someone else took over the ship. This is not the rightful captain. And that captain is the amygdala. They look like almonds, and there are two. When the amygdala are turned on, that makes us feel in fear, in uncertainty. Our thoughts can be catastrophic. We are more reactive. We feel more hurt by what we're told. Everything looks distorted. Our relationships suffer from this, and performance is affected because I don't have the resources, because they're turned off in order to handle better certain situations. Why do I want you to have these changes very clear? It's very common that people that are very stressed, they understand of the physiological symptoms, tachycardia, gastritis, difficulties in digestion, allergies, but they don't connect the brain changes with the physiological changes. And this is very important because resilient people have the ability to focus their attention, to choose the good things, and clearly to tell themselves a better story of what's going on. And in order for you to do this, your prefrontal cortex, your navigation system, you have to turn it on. Breathing becomes a vehicle, an essential vehicle to take us to this state. There are also relaxation techniques, not only breathing. The common thing is to stimulate the parasympathetic system. There are 5 techniques: diaphragmatic breathing, meditation, yoga, tai chi, and qigong. Either one of these techniques consistently, and this is very important because the changes, especially genetic changes and biological changes, are related to consistent practices and frequent practices. Today, especially, we're going to talk about breathing. We chose breathing because it's an ability that everyone has. We do it every day. We need it to survive because we need to get the oxygen through this process, because oxygen is the local currency in our body. Every single function of our body depend on oxygen because it's what provides us with energy. Breathing, you can do it consciously, different from any other variables that you cannot modify. I mean, you cannot control your temperature, for example, but you can say, I'm going to breathe faster or slower, deeper or more shallow from my thorax, from my abdomen. You have the ability willingly to alter the way you breathe. And that's the gateway to stimulate the branch that you need from your autonomic nervous system. The first thing we're going to do is to identify the breathing pattern. You're going to start to understand how you usually breathe. And for this, you're going to put your back straight, as if you had a bar in your spinal cord. Your shoulders are going to be relaxed away from your ears. You place an opened hand under your clavicles, and the other hand, you're going to place it on top of your umbilicus, opened. Once you're positioned like this, you're going to close your eyes and you're going to breathe the way you usually do. Don't change absolutely anything. You just observe. Now, you're going to ask yourself, what hand moves more when you're breathing? If you have the possibility to continue with the exercise facing a mirror, it's good to do that, because maybe we don't notice what's moving. Once you have it clear, what's the predominant hand during this breathing exercise, I just brought this image of how you can place your hands on your body. Then you can sit down and see if you have a breathing pattern that is vertical, horizontal, or mixed. Let's start with the vertical. Most people have a vertical breathing pattern. The hand that is placed in the thorax is the one that moves more. These people who have vertical breathing, they tend to grow vertically, raising their shoulders with each inhalation and lowering them with each exhalation. The vertical pattern of breathing is associated with sympathetic overactivity. It's a way of breathing that can lead me to more stress. Since this is a bidirectional way of communication, I can be stressed and I can start breathing like this, short, very shallow, with my shoulders. But it can also happen that I don't feel stress emotionally or mentally, but the way I'm breathing can signal the brain into alarm mode, and this contributes to amplifying pathological processes. If you have a vertical pattern, pay attention, because you have to work. Let's move to the horizontal breathing pattern. Not many people, and it's the main movement is from the hand that was placed in the abdomen. The hand goes together with the movement of the abdomen, and everything starts from the abdomen. If you have small children, nephews, If you have had the opportunity of having a pet, like a dog, a cat, a horse, any mammal, you can realize that all of them breathe with their abdomens. You can see that a baby is breathing normally because they breathe from their abdomen. The same with your pets. From the physiology and the biology, we are designed to have an abdominal pattern of breathing. The horizontal breathing pattern is ideal and is associated with the more parasympathetic tone. We have to work to achieve it. It's important to know that when you are using your abdomen to breathe, you are moving a muscle that looks like a pizza that goes through your body, that separates your viscera from your heart. That muscle with a pizza shape descends and ascends with the breathing, is the main muscle of breathing. When we move our abdomen, the lowering of this muscle allows the exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide to be more effective. And it also helps us to increase our parasympathetic tone. When we breathe like this, and we do it biologically, we self-regulate. In modern life, there is always a reason to be stressed. We're late, we have an obstacle, we have to reply an email, we don't have enough food, my partner is going through a difficult time. So many demands. But if we breathe in a proper way and self-regulate our system through our parasympathetic system and handle the situations in the best way, avoiding for them to accumulate, we prevent big changes in the long term that could give place to chronic diseases. Finally, many of you can have a mixed pattern. You move both the thorax and the abdomen. Now you're going to ask yourself, what things can change your breathing pattern? This list is very important because you're going to realize that many of the things that can trigger changes in your breathing, you can change them, are modifiable. If you can change them, well, go for it. Do you have high levels of stress or anxiety or panic? Because these patients have a high stress. Do you have problems with sleep? So the parasympathetic system is like turned off. Do you work on a computer most part of the day? This is relevant, and especially now living in the middle of a pandemic, and most of us live in front of a computer, and the position, the posture favors our breathing pattern to go vertically. And if we are overstressed and we breathe from our thorax, do you use belts or pants that are very tight? Do you have memories of childhood that are full of fear, anxiety, of worry? It relates to the difficult memories from childhood. These moments are a group of situations that have been studied throughout years, from the 60s approximately, and they have become very important because we know that children that have been exposed to these situations are more vulnerable to stress. In simpler words, the amygdala, this place in our brain, is more active, and the threshold of activation is lower. With a few stimulus, this person becomes stressed. and they have a higher burden of disease. These difficult situations in childhood might be related to very complex situations like abuse, but there are also subtle situations that can mark, that can change the brain architecture. And even they can go all the way back to gestation, specifically the organogenesis, the period where organs are formed. That takes approximately 12 weeks because cortisol, the stress hormone, goes through the placenta and transforms the way your children is going to look into life, how is it going to be related, and the neural connections that he makes. It's very important to know that if we have difficult situations in our childhood, because maybe my dad used to drink alcohol, because there were arguments in my family or difficult economical moments, maybe we change a lot, maybe we live in different places, everything that made you feel worried or uncertain or unsafe in different contexts, they make you more vulnerable to stress, and it's important to work on that vulnerability for it not to be transmitted biologically or to your children. Do you chat during the day? And I think we all do, and too much. And it's related to a specific pattern of breathing. Do you carry purses, bags, how much they weigh? It changes your posture. Have you suffered pneumonia or bronchitis? Have you been a smoker, active or passive? Do you live in a city with high levels of pollution? Do you have lesions in your neck, shoulders or back? Do you use a bra or top? Do you suffer from problems to breathe by nose, or have asthma or respiratory diseases? All of this is going to make you a more resilient person. We are going to enter into the specific breathing exercises. The next two, that are called diaphragmatic extension and rock and roll, have the purpose to lead us to relaxation states. Are the ones we use as control mechanisms, not acute, but basal, that day by day I live in a very controlled state. When are these exercises useful? Especially in the beginning and the end of the day. It's very important to start your day with a relaxation technique, because you're going to turn on your prefrontal cortex, and in that way everything looks different. The way you interpret the things that happen, the way you have relationships, the purpose, your ability to trust, to experience love, compassion, empathy, hope, that are emotions of high vibration and that lead you to better cohesion and to allow you to reorganize your system. So it's important to have a very clear strategy at the beginning of the day and at the end, in order for you to transcend to a very peaceful and restful night. Additionally, if you have insomnia, if you wake up at 2 or 3 a.m., you can breathe in the way that I'm going to teach you, and it's going to help you go back to sleep. If you have a very hectic day and your mind is very disorganized and it's like an open faucet with a lot of thoughts, when you have deep pains in your spirit, in your soul, You can change this with breathing. You can give meaning to this pain. Diaphragmatic extension is the basic breathing exercise. As you see in the image, we lay down with our legs flexed and both our hands on our abdomen. The air comes in through our noses. The abdomen dilates to the maximum capacity. And when you fill your abdomen to the maximum capacity, you hold as many seconds as you feel comfortable. And once you do that, slowly, very gradually, you're going to exhale through your nose until you have a little contraction, trying to take all the air out. And you can picture your umbilicus trying to touch your spinal cord. We're going to do this exercise sitting 5 times. Remember to find a good posture with your back straight. Ideally is laying down, but sitting is okay. We close our eyes, because when we close our eyes, the brain activity changes. We breathe in through our nose. We dilate our abdomen. We hold. And slowly you breathe out through your nose. Repeat the exercise. Three more times. One recommendation: while you do the diaphragmatic extension, you're going to focus on the technique. You breathe in through your nose, dilate the abdomen, hold, and breathe out slowly through the nose. Ideally is to do 30 to 40 repetitions in the morning and in the night. The research points out that it's the time that it takes for the brain to change the activity. It's the way to modify the connections in my brain in order to change my behavior. It's important to become more resilient. The more breathing time you have, the more activation of the parasympathetic system you get with a consistent practice. The diaphragmatic extension is going to help you to have a very good day, have a more balanced day, having your emotions and your thoughts well balanced, and that your biological functions are regulated. The rock and roll exercise is also a breathing exercise to achieve relaxation. As you see in the image, it starts sitting with your hands on your abdomen. It's called rock and roll because it's like a dance. When you breathe in, your back is straight. The air always goes through your nose. You dilate your abdomen, and then when you exhale, it's like flexing the thorax or the abdomen, trying to push the air out. We breathe in. We feel our abdomen, our back straight, and then I flex my abdomen. I bend and I push the air out. Always close your eyes. Two more times. Rock and roll, you can do it as many times as you want during the day. I'm very tired, I need energy, stop and you do the rock and roll exercise. I had a very bad night, it's been a very hard day, I stop and I do the rock and roll. How many times? At least 15. Whenever you have a very deep pain, stop and breathe. Only by rocking ourselves can bring us to those memories of childhood and to the context that brought so much peace. And that exercise connects directly to our network in our brain. And rock and roll is for day-to-day life, to control better the stress levels, to recover from painful moments. You can always do it. Now, what happens when I am calmed, but maybe something starts to happen that are bothersome, and I feel my heart rate racing, I start sweating, and my mind is distorted, and I'm feeling very negative emotions and to think very catastrophic scenarios, and then you're gonna stop. Anytime you can, stop. Not only to be away from the stimulus, and if you additionally can be away from the situation physically, if it's a person, then I find another room, a bathroom, I find a space to be alone. I breathe, and then I reflect, and then I choose. It's important to have the order of these clear, because when you breathe, you activate your parasympathetic system, your prefrontal cortex, you can reflect better about what's happening, and you're going to choose consciously how are you going to handle it. Always with self-regulation. Stop, breathe, reflect, and choose. How are you going to breathe? You're going to breathe in two ways. The first one is called tactic breathing. The Dr. Belisa Branick, one of the biggest exponents of this, she's a psychologist. She has studied post-traumatic stress syndrome, how to help people going through that. Specifically, she has done research with war veterans, 9/11 survivors. Populations are exposed to high stress levels. Tactic breathing is used in the US Army because it allows them, in a matter of seconds or minutes, reconnect to their ability to handle situations, because they have to make the decisions, very important decisions, and they don't have time to think. So tactic breathing has very quick effects. You can use them in any situation of acute stress where you have to solve things like right now. You breathe in 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Always through your nose. Moving your abdomen. Hold. 1, 2, 3, 4. You breathe out through your nose. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And you hold. 1, 2. Again, you breathe in. 1, 2, 3, 4. You hold. 1, 2, 3, 4. You breathe out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You hold. 1, 2. Close your eyes. Keep counting in your mind. Two more times. How many repetitions of tactic breathing? 5 to 10. Is the necessary time 3 minutes that your brain needs to get out of those stress situations, lower your cortisol, adrenaline, noradrenaline, and come back to a balanced state, to what we know as homeostasis. The second exercise is the pulsated exhalation. You inhale, filling your abdomen to the maximum capacity, and you breathe out part by part. You hold and you breathe out, you breathe, you hold and you breathe out, you hold and you breathe out. It's very important that while you're breathing out, you put an intention with the breathing out. What are you letting go? What do you want to get out? What's the weight that you want to get rid of? What are the thoughts that you want to be free from? Let's do it together. Your hands always on your abdomen. When you are more familiar with the exercise and you know that you're moving your abdomen, you no longer have to use your hands. And you can do this exercise anywhere, in the grocery store, whenever you're out, in any place. And while you're going through a reproductive technique, then you can use this. Once you are following a process with a doctor and you have a work plan very clear, you can start these breathing exercises to have a very active parasympathetic system that are going to improve the chances of getting pregnant, and additionally to have the ability to regulate yourself in every important moment. The test day, the result day, the procedure day. I have brought 4 times of breathing for you to know them, to practice them, and choose the one you resonate best, and to practice them while you're going through very demanding situations. And you can see if this is really useful for you. We're going to do the pulsated exhalation. We breathe in with our eyes closed. We hold, and slowly you breathe out. You hold and you breathe out gradually, piece by piece. You breathe in, you hold, and you breathe out piece by piece. In my office, I like to play some music while doing these exercises. Well-designed music, neuromusical therapy, music for meditation, and you can apply both stimulus to the experience. Depending on the music, of the vibration, of the sounds, it can stimulate the parasympathetic system, and you can get a greater response. You're giving the brain, in an unconscious way, a stimulus. You can play it whenever you're going to your appointment, and you're going to feel calmed. You're going to be able to receive every piece of news in a calmed way. I want to finish with this gift. This is a recipe for stress management. Desiderata is a poem that if you comply with every single sentence, you're gonna have a life that has an optimum level of stress. We're gonna read. Go placidly amid the noise and haste, and remember what peace there may be in silence. We are being invited to to physical activity, to walk, and to meditation, to breathing, all these techniques of relaxation that are related to silence. As far as possible, without surrender, be on good terms with all persons. Speak your truth quietly and clearly, and listen to others, even the dull and the ignorant. Remember that everyone is ignorant, but we ignore different things. If you compare yourself with others, you may become vain and bitter, for always there will be greater and lesser persons than yourself. Comparison sometimes arrives inevitably when we're searching fertility. For some, it comes naturally, but for other people, there is a process that needs to be done that can be challenging in order to get parenthood. And from comparison, you get suffering. And remember that everyone has its own pain. Pain doesn't have hierarchy. I can see other moms that have children, but they may have other problems. There is not a good companion in comparison. Be yourself. Especially, do not feign affection. Neither be cynical about love. For in the face of all aridity and disenchantment, it is a perennial as the grass. Take kindly the counsel of the years, gracefully surrendering the things of youth. This is a sentence that I love. Nurture strength of spirit to shield you in sudden misfortune, but do not distress yourself with dark imaginings. 95% of the things that are stressful are in our imagination, are part of fantasies. So be strong spiritually, but not because you're gonna get crazy with fantasies, catastrophic fantasies. On the contrary, you're gonna have a bond to have solid basis. Many fears are born of fatigue and loneliness. Remember that the brain is a social organ. We need connection to others. Beyond a wholesome discipline, be gentle with yourself. Being kind with ourselves is to know when to be self-compassionate, but not the self-compassion that we have learned. Is the self-compassion that we experience while knowing that we're experiencing different experiences, different types of pain, mistakes, failure. We are here all together, and these difficult times present in different ways, and realities are very different from person to person, but we share. You are a child of the universe, no less than the trees and the stars. You have a right to be here. And whether or not it is clear to you, no doubt the universe is unfolding as it should. Therefore, be at peace with God, whatever you conceive Him to be. The universe, the energy, whatever it may be, nature, whatever it represents, and whatever your labors and aspirations, in the noisy confusion of life, keep peace with your soul. Don't allow noise to get very loud and to start raising worries and suffering. Everything unfolds as it should. In resistance, there's always suffering. When we accept life as it comes and we trust the process, the suffering is very different. When you start to give purpose and meaning to painful situations, they change. Dr. Viktor Frankl, who was a psychiatrist who wrote Man's Search for Meaning, and I invite you to read it, in a conference, he talked about a letter that touched his heart. And it was from a psychologist, from a student. But in his years of being a student, he had gone for a trip in a lake. He jumped and he suffered a trauma that led him quadriplegic, and in the beginning his life was completely broken. He only wanted to die. And then after some years, he started to understand that he knew himself pain in ways that no one else could. And because of that, he could connect in a very, very deep way with his patients and help them to move forward, because he could communicate and connect with them. So he started to understand that through this experience, marked by loss and difficulty, there was a purpose, a beautiful purpose, to heal others and help them to connect, because he was able to assign meaning to his suffering. In every suffering, go for the meaning. Surrender to life and to spirituality. With all its sham, drudgery, and broken dreams, it is still a beautiful world. Get in love with life, take care of yourself, and try to be happy. If you want to know more about this is my social network, Body Mind Care, and my phone number and my contact information. Thank you, doctor. Thank you so much. I want to close with a sentence that I loved. Hope allows us our maximum capacity of resistance. And that's the voice we want to transmit to our patients and to the people who are going through infertility. So I'm sending you a big hug. Some words to close this space. I think it's going to be extremely productive. Doctor, thank you again for this invitation. I want to leave the message: if there is a drug that can do anything in the world, it's hope. So a lot of times this experiential life is not what we think, but let's not allow this reality to come in the way of imagining, desiring, dreaming, and experiencing our dreams, what we want for ourselves. A lot of times, to leave the present when it's so bitter and difficult is to know that when you close your eyes and you know deep in your heart that everything is going to be fine. When you know that everything is going to work out, that in any way you're going to find the way to be okay and to be happy and to have a fulfilled life. Always cultivate hope and don't allow anything steal that. Not even the words from people that can be around trying to help, but they don't have the clarity to do that. Live your own process in a very deep way with your own selves. Everyone has their own resilience. Try to find every single tool you have, and we're here to help you in this process. Wonderful, doctor. Thank you so much. See you soon. Bye. Thank you.